Hello and welcome to the Audio Dad Chronicles. I'm Shale. Today we're diving into the music of Catalyst Crime with their return with Cursebreaker. So Symphonic Metal band Catalyst Crime are back. They seem to have taken a little bit of a hiatus at times because their front person, Zoe Fedoroff, has been mostly involved in playing live and in studio recordings with Cradle of Filth. But in recent times, things have fallen apart there. Rumors and not so much rumors. A lot of documents and receipts have been coming forward. There's been a little bit of, I don't want to call it a scandal, but a situation that has definitely unfolded in the rock media in recent months regarding her exit from the band and the reasons for it, i.e. the working conditions, the pay, and so on, just not being what it needs to be or what it should be to respect the artists and their contributions to the music. And thus it led to her departure from the band, and shortly thereafter her husband Ashok also did the same. He originally was going to stick around to the end of their most recent tour that she departed mid-tour on, but due to circumstances being involved in all of that, he also stepped aside and is no longer involved in the band Cradle of Filth. I'm not going to get too much in the particulars of that. It's not really in my business. And there is a lot of information out there online. The bands have had a little bit of a back and forth feud or spat, so to speak, happening over it all. And like I say, the receipts are out there. The parties involved know what it's all about. If you want to look more into it, you're more than welcome. Let's just suffice to say that it all seems pretty cut and dry and clear what's going on there. And with a long history of not always treating their band members the best, I won't point any fingers at any certain singer in the band Cradle of Filth, but it does seem to be what it is. There is a long history of other artists leaving there and not always getting their fair share, not always getting the respect they should or the pay they should. And so it is what it is, and there they are. Zoe has now left the band, of course, and is back with Catalyst Crime, so we're really lucky for that because I'm a huge fan of them. Really like what they've done in the past, and I can't wait to check out more music of theirs. So why don't we check out more music of theirs? Let's get straight into it, shall we?
Once upon a stone skipped into the sea, forgotten in the gloom of an ocean of misery. Purpose now attained, here to entertain a moment of laughter bring. But she had a soul, this forgotten stone, as she sank into the sea. Bring me higher, take me closer, teach me more when days are darker. Bring me higher, take me closer, teach me more when days are darker.
Just going to quick little pause there. I don't want to dwell too much on her previous situation. There was one other thing I was going to mention that I neglected to at the very beginning there. And props to Zoe and Ashok both for stepping up and opening up the can of worms, so to speak, that I'm sure was really hard on them to publicly put themselves out there and expose the situation for what it is. But sometimes some good comes from it, and whether it's a coincidence or not, it does appear that being a hired gun and being in a role that, like I say, isn't always respected or paid or treated fairly or properly has opened a bit of a can of worms. And since their departure from Cradle of Filth, it looks like some other bands and artists with a lot of hired gun type backing roles are starting to speak up more as well. Try to get their props, their due, or just make a situation known. And another one that comes to mind believe I mentioned it once before on the channel, would be the artist Dogma. I just read recently in Metal Medias that they were removed from or cancelled on a tour of Australia, and it mostly had to do with it coming to light that the band Dogma behind the scenes really is more of a bunch of hired guns who are having their strings pulled, so to speak, not unlike a pop band might, a kind of a manufactured thing. It wasn't really the organic band that we all thought it was. They are a band, for those that don't know, that kind of dress like evil nuns, just to oversimplify it. They have face paint on, or very corpse-like paint, a nun-like outfits, and they perform, hard metal and the like. But fans had started noticing over time that when they would go to see the band, it wasn't necessarily the same band member. One or two here might have changed, which happens in bands. It is a thing. It's a reality of life. But the shows weren't the same. The songs maybe weren't getting pulled off the same. And no disrespect to any of the artists in it. They may have only been there for one day, just joined as an emergency fill-in when somebody quit or was fired or whatever the situation was. Again, I'm not going to get too much into all the politics of it all. The point more was that it has definitely come out that Dogma was primarily all the members that were playing live were hired to be there, which is not a bad thing, but they were paid very poorly and treated very poorly. And that is a bad thing. So artists like Zoe stepping forward, bringing it to the forefront that it is okay to stand up for yourself, that you're not going to get blacklisted in the industry if you do, that the fans are going to support you, that the love is going to be there. And them stepping back from it has now led to, like I said, the curtain getting pulled back and the band being removed from some tours because of the overall situation of them being very controlled and not being treated properly and treated fairly, and going on these big tours and playing on these big stages and receiving almost no compensation for it. So props to all the band members that have been in that band over the years and have endured what they endured, and I hope nothing but the best for your continued careers from here on forward. And I would love to hear more music from what they might do on their own now that they're no longer affiliated with that situation. Speaking of people that are no longer affiliated with that situation, let's get back into Callous Crime, shall we? Because this is fantastic, and Zoe's voice, amazing as always. Very nice. Sort of stop it again. It's that thing. We got to do it. We got to break up those songs or we get in trouble, get copyright strikes. It's a fact of life as a music reactor. I do have active copyright strikes for myself. So sorry for all the interruptions. It's just a reality. Quick little acknowledgement, because I was talking about backing bands and hired guns and all that. I'm not calling this band hired guns. They're a band. But killer mix so far. This is really clean, really well done. I'm really liking the guitar tone. It's heavy, but it's clear. You can hear the individual notes, you can hear the chords. It's just not a wall of sound. Drums are fantastic, really, really clean, really well recorded, really well mixed. Bass player is solid, and as I understand it, that's her dad. Very cool. Always nice when you get to be in a band with your family or your dad, even in this case. Maybe one day I'll be in a band with one of my kids. One of them plays instruments already, and the other one is still young. We'll find out. Anyways, let's get back into this. Uh-oh, you broke a mirror. One last quick little stop there, just because we're watching a music video. I know it's all acted, so to speak, and I'm sure it was fake blood. Hopefully Zoe didn't get any real injuries on her hand. 7 years bad luck, breaking a mirror, picking up the chunks and playing with them. I'm sure that's not going to end well for your fingers, but I'm sure that's something a singer could get away with a little more than a bass player like myself, but I'm sure she's fine. I will say one thing I definitely appreciate and love about the band. It's Zoe and her singing, all operatic at times, or very high. She doesn't do the growls. That's okay. I do listen to a fair amount of female-fronted or a lot of heavy metal in general, and a lot of artists will go from the cleans to the growls, maybe even death metal gutturals at times. Versatility is cool and appreciated, but sometimes you don't want that. Sometimes you want that clarity, you want that beauty in that heavy music. And man, is this ever bringing it. What a cool shot I stopped on there. Damn. That's cover worthy, that one. Always appreciate it when they give credits at the end too. There's a lot of people like myself who are really into the background of the music, how being a roadie and a technician and involved in music video production. It's always cool to see, who was responsible for this, who made this movie possible. And quick little mention, because I neglected to do so earlier, was not my intentions to ignore the keyboard player in that. Nice beginning at soft piano, and then it really built with a lot of bigger chords and textures and layers that filled out the notes and the frequencies in between everything else, and really contributed overall to the song. Didn't want to leave anybody out of that. Everybody matters, and that is a band that definitely knows how to utilize all of the parts together to really lift up the song and the songwriting. And then Zoe's voice just up and above it all, soaring like an angel. What a great song. Really enjoyed that. Really happy to see Catalyst Crime is back. They're doing more music. Hopefully there'll be tours to come. Really curious to know where Shock will lead from here with his career now that he's no longer a part of Cradle of Filth. I have no doubt he'll bounce back. He's a really good guitar player. He is definitely known for more than just being in that band, and I'm sure that's not the last we're going to see him, and this will not be the last where you're listening to Catalyst Crime or more symphonic metal. That is definitely a genre that I'm a huge fan of and definitely have to cover more on this channel. Hopefully I'll be doing more of that soon. Hopefully you're here along for the ride. Thanks for coming along for this one, and I hope to see you again.